You know that the World Economic Forum for several years have been talking about the advent of the fourth industrial revolution, a new leap, a new actual spiral of the progress, which is going to be brought about by our mankind. And the new technologies are changing exponentially, and this very high tempo of changes of technology might not but have an impact on ourselves, the society, and the state. Denis Gursky, the incubator 1919 Open Data, is with us. Georgi Vatshadze, one of the deputy ministers of Georgia, the creator of the reform of the justice system. He is working here in Ukraine in the foundation of in innovation, and Ilya Kinenstein. And to start our discussion, I would like to ask each of our panelists to express their opinion of the following. What do you think? How quick Ukraine can change the model of its economy? How quickly Ukraine can give up the old industrial agrarian trash and go over to the new technologies? And what hampers this process? And what starting conditions Ukraine has to do it quickly? Denis, you have 10 minutes to open this discussion. Good morning, good afternoon, and I would like to thank you to be invited. And I can see for the first time that many people sitting in this audience who are interested in the intellectual things. And well, a real thing is really happening in this fair, and it's not only the place where they sell all sorts of skis and snowboards. This is one of the projects which is changing this program, this country, and this new model could be used by for other enterprises how to do things properly. I'd like to discuss the following. Actually, for the last during the last week, I was very much impressed by a discussion which was waged by the representatives of the old Ukrainian community, and the discussion ended by, for the first time, that I understood that should Ukrainian economy would be working in accordance with the standards which it was operating based on the standards of the Soviet Union, it would be better for us if those new standards, which historically now have been created. And as an example, I would like to quote the following. One of the tools which was used to develop the innovation potential in during the Soviet times was the so-called manual, which was developed by the Communist Party of Ukraine, and they made each industrial enterprise to fill out that instruction. And it was the instruction about the bottlenecks in the production process. It was the terms of reference for all the industry, for the scientific research institutes, for academics, and for the laboratories. At present, the industry is absolutely divorced from the science, and they are using the equipment which has been depreciated very long ago, and it goes nowhere. I think that the change of the model of interaction between the innovative points which at present exist in the Ukrainian society and their interaction with the state machinery, is the prerequisite of success. I participate in one of the segments possible interaction of the innovation points and the government machinery, and this is called the industry of open data. As of today, European Union considers that the openness of the data and creation of the quality information infrastructure of the state, the economy of the European Union can gain 2% of GDP, and this is 200 billion euro per year. This is an absolutely new market which is being formed at the expense of two things: saving of funds, because the proper solutions are being implemented. If you have confronted the work of the government machinery, so each top-level official has at least two advisors, and when they take decisions, they look for the numbers. The energy consumption of Ukraine 2 years ago, for example, or for example, how many kilometers of the roads have not been rehabilitated. And on the basis of this, all big decisions are taken. If you have two advisors, God bless, God save you, you will get at least three numbers, but not even two numbers, because the information infrastructure is not built up properly. And the services which are being based on the information infrastructure will help to rationally use the funds, save the funds, and take rational decisions. And the second aspect, well, we have to provide new services which do not allow us to rationalize the using of funds, but they give an opportunity to provide new services for which the people and business are ready to pay. Example, very simple things, and you maybe face that in real life, but they could have been done, within a couple of days, spending no money. It's a register of the pharmacies of the city of Kiev, or the schedule of transit in the mayor, and also the register of licenses of the pharmaceuticals in the Ministry of Health. So we might actually mix three databases, and we might get a new service to, for example, in one click, see where the insulin could be bought by you. These are simple things which are being done by the government institutions outside this country and the private institutions, but because there is war in Ukraine, there is a big hole in the budget. It's 85 billion hole, a gap, and Ukraine is incapable on the part of the states to create good digital services because there are no personnel there. So I think we have to use this innovation potential and develop innovation services with the help of the Ukrainian software specialists, and we have more than 100,000 of those. So that's a small adjustment which could be made from my point of view. That is usage of state data to save, to rationally use funds, and this will bring more transparency, it will combat corruption, which goes without saying, and also development of new services which are being produced outside the government machinery. And if they work with non-personal data and with not classified information, so that these are open data, but if this data is private, or they have some personal data, then it's the PPP, and just the contract is being signed, and within the framework of this contract, you use this data, and you are paying fees either to the state companies, or to the state agencies, or to the enterprises. Hello. First of all, I would like to congratulate you with a very good event, and very interesting topics are being discussed. And the topic is extremely interesting because the fourth industrial revolution is going on around us globally, and the states change, individuals are changing, and we live a different life in comparison with what sort of life we had 15-20 years ago, because the technologies has changed our day-to-day life very much. Previously, we were not proactive participants of the processes which evolved around us. We have become much more proactive. We are sitting in the Facebook, in the social nets. Now we have various ideas. We initiate various innovative ideas, and I think that things which go on now is the situation when as an individual, as separate human being, has more opportunities to self-realize himself or herself. But the problem here is about the following: the system in which we will live, the state or bureaucracy, again, has been built in accordance with the 19th century standards. Somebody decided in the 19th century that there should be vertical hierarchy, and they took a lot of decisions about them. And we have delegated a lot of our rights to the state, and this hampers our development. In the global world today, together with the development of the technology and together with globalization, actually various states are competing with one another to attract investment, so that the companies will be opened in certain states, and the economy has become more global. The companies can very quickly change their sites where they operate, where they have headquarters, and some states really win a lot, and if they have innovative approaches. and a lot of benefits. In Ireland, the growth of economy was 26%. It's absolutely unbelievable growth because usually people said that in developed countries, 2, 3, 4% is maximum what they can achieve. But new technologies, new ideas, new development, globalization, industrial revolution, all these factors show us that if there are innovative approaches in the country, if a person properly reform, then the state can achieve quick growth of the economy, and it is possible to do in the developing countries, Ukraine, Georgia, and other emerging economies. Well, actually, the new globalization, the fourth industrial revolution is a huge opportunity for development, and on the other hand, it's a serious problem for development. It's a problem because if our countries if we are looking at our economy through the Soviet lens, we will never be able to achieve the level of development we need. We have to be innovative. We have to develop something new. We have to attract businesses, investments, so that they start working in our country, so that they create businesses, so they create creative business, so that they create innovative business. So what the state should do for that? The state has to implement new generation of reforms. Well, since lately, Ukraine, the state was a service provider inside the country, outside the country, for the citizens, for the businesses, and and in general. A very interesting model of Estonia was demonstrated to us. And in Georgia, we were doing a similar thing, and the state still is the state as a service provider. They register, the state issues licenses, provides services, and does a lot of additional things. But for the new countries to develop, the state should become a platform for self-realization, not because the state provides this service, but they become a platform where a lot of private initiatives might flourish, a lot of individuals participate in development of various services and development of various directions, because bureaucracy and the system which dates back to centuries back. It's like cholesterol in the body. It blocks the vessels and people die. Well, we can say the same about the bureaucracy, which is fraught in corruption, which brings about a lot of problems in the future, and it hampers the development of the economy. The reforms are to be implemented, those which provide more opportunities for the individuals to self-realization. And it's interesting. Well, that's why we are interested in real new technologies, and they give an opportunity for people to develop themselves and to increase their realization, self-realization. We have a formula. What reforms have to be carried out in the country, and everything is based on the approach 5D. We call it deregulation, deregularization, deconcentration, decentralization, and demonopolization. So, well, it is easy to explain. Deregulation, it means that we should give as little as functions as possible with the state. The bureaucracy decides absolutely everything around us. They issue licenses, they issue various permits. If we want to start a business, we have to apply to the government authority to get our company registered, then get a license, and then a permit, and then whatever letters, and then some bureaucrat would dislike us, and maybe you will not get the document at all, and thus you won't be able to start a business. So minimum competence, minimum functional should be left with the state. The second D, demonopolization, and that's mandatory. That's the most important thing which has to be done. And even those functions and competences which we are going to leave with the state as the third force which participates in our economic relations, they should not be monopolized. What is the problem of the current authorities and bureaucracy at present? How do they hamper us? There is a department which is authorized to issue some permit, and if a specific individual, whatever, head of this department is not going to sign this document, we are not going to get a permit, for example, a permit for construction. And if we are building this system where not a single bureaucrat, but a lot of private participants can give us a permit, for construction of the licensed object. But the most important thing, if we are developing certain environments, so the competitive environment, so competition makes those bureaucrats or service providers to provide the best services to us. Look, should there be only one store where the bread is being sold, and it will be a problem for us to buy bread because there will be lines of people, and the salesperson would require more money from us if this bread costs, and it will be very difficult for us to survive. The same with the bureaucracy. When one person can sign the documents which we have to get from the state, then definitely a lot of problems are being created. The next D is deconcentration. Too much power is concentrated with the same authorities, ministries, which are related to one another, and they actually close the chain, and they don't give us an opportunity to properly develop. And decentralization, it means that the various authorities, services have to be as close to us as possible, so that we have those opportunities close to us, which create the state around us. But the most important thing is the new technologies are changing the approach and the concept of what we see at present in the current state. What is a state? A state actually is an intermediary between us. We have some agreements, the laws, we have passed the laws, and we say that if somebody wants to build in this country an object, so a law tells us that they have to get a permit for construction, but to get a permit for construction or just register property, we have to come to the state body, to state authority, because we have delegated our authority to this authority, so that they would register the property to our name. And these technologies give these opportunities, and these new technologies give us an opportunity to deprive the state of the exclusive functions, and bureaucracy is deprived of these exclusive functions. And in this case, in the future, it will be possible to develop much quicker, because we will be able to create a competitive environment, not only because we are outsourcing these functions to the private sector, but also because we might create more jobs in this area, in this sector. At present, bureaucracy in the public sector employs millions of people. They have low wages, and they constantly are telling us, what can we do? We have to somehow earn our living, and that's why there is corruption, and there are various issues and problems. But if in the future we are going to transfer these functions to the public sector or civic sector, and they are going to become the service provider for us, then self-regulation structures will be created. Thus, new jobs are going to be created in business, in this sector, like in a business, and the economy starts to develop much quicker, because we are competing, and we would like to bake the best bread, to be able to sell it if there is a competition in this market. And the same will happen in the area of public services. Everybody will be interested to provide better and better services. And also, the tax system plays a huge role. Too many taxes, high taxes, are needed to make expenditures from the budget, or actually to earn the money from corruption. And in the future, in the global world, globalized world, those countries which are going to be innovative, who are using the new technologies, are going to develop quicker, including the public sector, to create by the state the platform for self-realization of the citizens. This has been done by Ireland. 26% of economic growth last year. They have decreased the taxes and they have simplified bureaucracy, and the huge companies started to move into Ireland and to transfer their headquarters to Ireland. And the business from the United States was going to Ireland, and the American economy faces a lot of problems now. There are innovative, creative business approaches. If you are really implementing the reforms but not playing around them without getting any results, then in the during the fourth industrial revolution and in the global world, you will get very good opportunities to develop what Ukraine does have and what Ukraine lacks to become competitive. First of all, I believe that Ukraine has very good human potential, and IT technologies are developed and the human resources are well developed. But the negative side of it is that the Soviet approach, that the state has to do a lot of things instead of us, that the state has to finance, the state has to implement, the state has to carry out certain functions, this hampers development of this country a lot. And I believe that in the future, Ukraine will unleash the huge potential if they properly implement reforms, correct reforms, innovative reforms, radical reforms, which will give an opportunity for self-realization of its citizens. In the future, I believe where the state will have to invest a lot is the educational sector. It's not only about the free education for all, but it is necessary to invest into those directions which are going to be competitive. In the fourth industrial revolution, there will be certain demand for certain professions, like, for example, drivers, workers in the enterprises, and so on and so forth, are going. The number of those are going to decrease, but intellectual workers are to be in demand. Whether there is a possibility to be creative, to self-realize oneself, and we have to target to that direction to develop the human resources in these directions, so that they will be capable of competing with other countries in the future global world. We are going to discuss the issues of the education a little bit later. Hello. Georgi, you said everything I wanted to tell. I would add just one more, 6D. That is de-lobbying of the population, because this is where we have to start. And nothing is going to fly if there will be on the part of the government, as well as a lot of people who live in this country, do not understand that. If they are going to be boors, yeah, and treat each other awfully. So we have to get rid of this. I absolutely agree to the concept which was laid out by my colleague, but I would like to add the following. I am a business person, but I'm not a socially oriented entrepreneur, because when it was necessary for me, and I understood to start implement my own project, I would need 3G in this country. I went to the proper organization, hired good specialists in this area, and we implemented the 3G here. And maybe this was one of the first very important wins which we have demonstrated. Why did we do this? We just wanted to have a proper opportunity to communicate with each other. And maybe somebody did it just maybe to send posts cats in the Facebook, but it gives digital freedom, which is as important as the roads between our cities. Because if 3Gs would exist during the Maidan, the results of the Maidan would be maybe that awful. Maybe I make a mistake, but I believe that 3G changed our attitude to life, and it gave us just a huge leap. We understand it that we have got it at the last moment. It existed already in Iran, but not in Ukraine. And this story was related, first of all, to corruption. Nothing was related with the absence of the technology. But first of all, it was because of the corruption. It was an absolutely history of corruption or story of corruption. The company which had an exclusive license to 3G, it was not developing its services and did not give an opportunity to other companies to enter the market and introduce this technology in the market. And this is a separate story. A lot has been written about it, and thank God it worked out with us. And I've heard that we are going soon to have a 4G, and that's great. And to launch the processes of reforms, 3G is one of the basic things for that. To do something which is related to the economy, especially with the innovative economy, we need two things. First of all, infrastructure. In our case, it's 3G. And in the second case, it is necessary to understand the awful situation in which we are. And yeah, we do have 3G, and also we understand that we are now in an awful situation. So, as a result, when I was thinking about the project which I'm implementing now, it's called Creative Quarter. So I took the sector of the economy, which at present is one of the advanced. And I talk about it a lot. And this is the economy which is called sharing economy. That is the economy of mutual consumption. It is quite a new thing, though it appeared at the beginning of the 70s in the American courts. The homeless people, due to their ideas, remember it was the movement of the hippie flourishing, so they were creating some sort of common value, saying that it's not necessary to buy things, and we are acquiring a new value of using. And this is a fundamental difference between the generation to which we belong and the generation to which you belong, because I can see a lot of young people, your millennium generation, most of you, and you were born between 80s and 2000s. And maybe you have not heard about it, but I would like to recommend Googling it, because it is going to change your mindset, especially if you are going to start your own projects. And I also believe that the economy of mutual consumption can change our state, and it can win corruption. Georgi was absolutely right in saying that. We are trying to combat corruption with the Soviet methods or with the ideas of our parents who don't know how to do it otherwise. They use the infantry in the war, but not technology. And in this sense, this is only one chance which can change the understanding and attitude of this issue and create new value. And the major thing about it was not owning, but using. And I can give you this simple example. We are absolutely helpless.
How helpless we are, where on one hand we gave birth to Maidan as a product of society. It was the most advanced disruptive startup, and the nature of it was that first you need to do something for someone, to give without expecting anything with return. And that's an important thing. If there wasn't for Maidan, that recent Maidan, we the world around us, the country around us would have been much, much worse. But if we talk about economy and business, the modern business has found a loophole through sharing economy where there's not the naive model that hippies created in the 70s in the American squats, where you don't have to buy an electrical drill to drill a hole, you just pay for the hole by renting out the drill. That model exists, but most of the companies and projects in the world who use this first model without the corporate management, without corporate governance, basically dies out. And they are replaced now by a new model which creates this huge startups, not even startups, corporations of huge size. One of them entered Ukraine and summer is Uber. It's one of the simplest examples of a company that works 100% in the sharing economy as a concept and is a queen of sharing economy with Airbnb as Grinder and so on. Not having the car, because when you have a car, you are afraid for its integrity, and it sucks a lot of money and energy out of you, and you are virtually a slave of your car. But using the car only as much as you need to use it, because you are only using this car 10% of the time. Rest of the time it just stands there. Airbnb is the same thing, giving opportunity and making money, giving other people your house to live in. And we work the same with the offices. We do our creative quarter, and we launched a freelancer startup for them to have the top level of maturity of operational services that only the toughest IT companies can afford themselves, not only in Ukraine. So we break that with glass ceiling where a lot of developers working, and give them this facility, not because we are occupying this high-tech loft, but because we're sharing the competence of top experts that we invite. How does this sharing economy 2.0 can change our life? The moment we start thinking about this economy, we start trusting each other. I said at the start that for me, the main reform in our society is the reform that de-slobization. We have to remove the slobs and idiots from managing our country and kill the idiot in yourself, in ourselves. I'm writing about this a lot, and it's a very interesting thing that is very relative to what Georgia said, because I'm looking at what Georgian reformers are doing, and sometimes it hurts me how idiots in the government act against you. And for me, it's probably, even if not the last chance, but the unique chance that we're still not using. What kind of innovative economy can talk if we don't have fundamental things not sorted out? The trust to each other. If we cannot repair our house without some American companies entering Ukraine and doing that. So what are we talking about? We have to start by changing ourselves, changing our mindset, not just aiming at Europe, calling some trying to change some small things that turn our country overnight in a European country. We need to find some closure with ourselves, because we cannot compare us with other societies. I give you an example about Iceland. They wrote constitution through Facebook. People So that's the peak of developed country that we still aim to. But with that in mind, and in conclusion, I want to say the following. I would think that we have colossal potential, which is dormant. I wouldn't say it's waking up. So the IT field that we have, and statistically we have about 100,000 people working in IT, and the agriculture that we are talking about, with they are still service companies in Ukraine. They are servicing the business. They service someone, and just as we have in IT a lot of work that we do for Western contractors, but we don't create product in itself. And the same thing happens with agriculture. Just the same, we grow and we sell. Only things that we can do with the simplest things. And this economic jump that we're trying to build in our country, it has created this value. Instead of using it and developing it the way we want, it's the third or fourth time that they started. First, they created R&D Mecca over a year. So probably other countries have been dreaming about things that we have right now, the human potential that we have. And that's why it hurts me so much when I'm looking at ourselves squandering things while the world is so much ahead of us. Not because we're silly, not because we are not smart, but because we don't know things. There are not too many of us. We are far away from basic things. And instead of creating our own products, instead of building our startups, not leaving Ukraine but staying here, creating getting investments from the state, and as a result implementing those projects, instead of that, we want the most elementary stuff that have to be guaranteed by default by our state. So I believe that the last hope is you, and I really want that result of this discussion panel would be your thinking. And Google sharing economy, please, because it's an incredible thing. In 2020, 40% of the US citizens will be freelancers. You don't need to go to office. You don't need to go to commute to the office because basically you may be working from whatever you want. As George said, they would be working out of other subcultures or subspaces and create a lot of value, because other things robots will create, because robotics is making huge progress. So please think about changing the world without looking someone to blame, although there are a lot of people to lay blame upon, and think about doing the first step toward a well-developed society, and economy will catch up. So a lot. Thanks a lot. Oh, by the way, sharing economy that Ilya mentioned, we are describing a lot of it in our magazine. You can read a lot of stuff in this magazine. And I noted also that we need to connect between each other. But still, in the modern Ukrainian economy, the dominating role is played by the bureaucrats, and they determine how modern economy is developing. And many of you in open data, in blockchain, and sharing economy, you had experience of working with the state, with the government, with reformers, with bureaucrats. Dennis, you are the advisor to the prime minister. Could you tell us how the cabinet of ministers looks upon these things? Well, I'm not an advisor right now, but have been for some time. Had been. My experience of working with the state boils down to 2012 when I came back from the U.S. and I dived into Ukrainian reality. For some time, I was doing some governmental projects, digital TV, starting from 2008 to 2010, and I've suffered through a lot of bureaucracy, believe me. And the reform of digital TV did happen, but it happened with one famous corporation of one famous person. So there was no such reform to begin with. Um, so in 2012, when it became evident that Ukrainian developers need databases, they need to work with something, you want to create some service of a city level, and you basically don't have any information available about anything, neither schools or hospitals. You don't know where it is. So it turns out that the Ministry of Education doesn't even collect the data of the tests because they don't go above the regional level. If you write to the ministry, how successful are Ukrainian students, they don't know. And that gave us the idea that me and my friends, we did hackathons all over the country, that it's time to do something. It's time to make the difference. And we started to dig how normal countries do that. We realized that there's open data which Ukraine still cannot catch wind of. So we started knocking the doors of cabinet ministers, the Minister of Justice administration. Then Maidan started. We supported that whole story with volunteer IT workers, and it so happened that we found um, we finally reached some governmental structures, e-government. We met Vice Prime Minister Groisman, Administration President Groisman, then went to Parliament. Administration President started working. So thanks to the initiative of the President and the civil organizations like ours helped draft the law on open data, and it got to the Parliament. It was approved, and I had a call from Cabinet of Ministers where they asked me to do a small presentation. I did a presentation for 15 minutes. Arsen Yatsenyuk asked me, can he appoint me as an advisor? I said, yeah, if that gives me an opportunity to push this reform through the ministry. So for 9 months I was an advisor, and I tried to push this reform through the ministry, and that's how the Cabinet of Ministers opened more than 300 registers. So let me say the following: you have to only trust and trust yourself. Each of us have our own image of ourselves, and de-idealization is good, but that picture that we hold of ourselves, that forms our country. Because if it's a proper picture, if it has a lot of detail, then we have a bright future. If your picture boils down to horizons, the latest weekend, and small entertainment, then there will be no reform. And I also faced with a lot of hellish bureaucracy on the highest level. And you should look through those people. Go to those who are ready to hear you, ready to share your picture, and see some. Yeah, it's a house of cards, but who said that house of cards is something bad? If it allows a good big thing to happen, and everybody's committed, and everybody agreed to be transparent, that's a normal thing. So I think there are great opportunities. Every person has an opportunity to be a small reformer. You said about decentralization. For me, decentralization is a possibility not to pay money to the Kiev budget, but leave them locally. Everything that spends locally is earned locally, that spends locally. People have to use local budgets, and it breaks down even down to communities. So work in your communities, spend budget. There's budget of participation. There's great reform. You can use governmental money where you need to be, where you need it, and convince other people that you need this money to be used for certain projects, not what the bureaucrats decided. And that project was launched in Lviv, in Kiev, in Berdyansk, and there are some cities which are advanced, but which are voted against. But luckily, we don't live in those cities. So I think it's all in your hands. And there's one more thing about that I wanted to mention. Last summer, I spoke in Washington on the Invest Forum, U.S. Ukraine. Basically, Ukraine has now this tradition to organize business forums all over the world. It's like export promotion of the strategy. And so I was lucky to participate in some of them. One of them happened in the U.S. And I heard the Joe Biden speech when Ilya says that you have to share and share economy without expecting something in return. Joe Biden said basically you do have to expect something, and he spoke to investors. We speak about reforms a lot. Our foreign partners are talking about anti-corruption, about transparency, but there's a small thing that was mentioned in this wonderful speech of Joe Biden. Dear cabinet minister, he said. Dear administration, the president, he said. All these things are good and fancy. The reforms are basically good. They're pretty slow, but you still forget the main thing. If no investors come to your country, then it's all in vain. If people don't feel the real inflow of the capital in the key fields of activity, then nothing will happen. No big company in the company entered Ukraine. Where's IKEA? Where's H&M? Where's everything that we love? Because there are a lot of iPhones. Where's Apple Office? There's no Apple Office in Kiev. So I would add a little pessimism and tell you that I was lucky to work in bad countries. Tajikistan, not bad, but difficult countries. Tajikistan, a lot of European and American money came into those countries as grant assistance, and it started happening 20 years ago. Look at those countries now; they're still like Afghanistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan. They're still the same as they were, the way we know them. The economy has not moved an inch. Why? Because organizations worked, but people did not. So you have to trust yourself and only count on your own self and push that, drive that picture that you have in your imagination. Thank you. Georgie, your activity of blockchain in public services. Well, first of all, there was a very interesting thing about reforms and investments. So let's say that in Ukraine, big investments are, well, it's still dangerous to invest a lot in Ukraine. You got to be crazy a little bit. Because Ukraine, unfortunately, right now is a black hole. You invest some money and you remit dollars, and it's transferred in hryvnia, and you want to get your money or your profits in dollars. Suddenly, you have to go through a national bank. Somebody requires some money from you in order to convert this money, and who's working in this condition? Only local businesses. How to work, how to navigate black holes, how to navigate these dark loopholes, how to bring money out of the country by cash or currency or banking transactions. So no normal investor will work in the country like that. So when we say that, because we are talking today about fourth industrial revolution, no less. So our country is prepares for this somehow. So at least transactions or remittances of money back and forth should be a simple procedure. But that is a problem. So when we talk about reforms, you gotta change everything. So by the way, if we take that example, it shows that bureaucrats decided that in order for the economy not to go into recession, not to have more economic problems, we have to control foreign currency transaction. That's where it started, and it boiled down to economy not developing because nobody wants to invest into a country where the money flows back not. So when we talk about reforms, first of all, it's not only deregulation. It's not just canceling some licenses or permits. It's it means a lot of functions and competences doesn't happen. should not happen. Nobody should control how or whom I remit the money. I understand that if it's a money laundering, it's one thing, and in normal countries there's a monitoring of these transactions. But if I want to move $1 million from Kiev to Washington, it shouldn't be a problem. It should be 2 minutes. But it's not 2 minutes in Kiev, but it can be 2 years to do everything legally. Well, illegally, of course, you can do it easier, but that's corruption. But you can build mechanism of simpler ways. How to do it without state regulation. And sometimes when I look at this Ukrainian bureaucracy, I see like as if they created that specially, all that bureaucracy, that nobody goes on legal and clear procedure, and everybody circumvented all that in order to solve their task. When we talk about reforms, how possible these reforms are, when we have a lot of contact with bureaucrats, with officials, and we offer lot of reforms, of course they don't agree, they don't want to reform all that, because we go to a person who makes money from his functions and competences, and we say, guys, you don't need those powers anymore. That means you don't need to make money anymore, and we work without you. Of course, they are against that, and because of that, I think the biggest problem in Ukraine is those bureaucrats who sit in their cabinets, who don't want to change anything, who don't want to be competitors for other countries. When we talk about investments, a lot of countries, look, we compete with Ireland. Every year they come up with some innovations to attract investments. What do? We do in country. We introduce more and more regulations so that less investments are entering. So we do vice versa. What's the way out? If 95% of public structure should be stopped for a year, get them free. I think everything, the economy would have been much more innovative. You got to build more, invest more investments will arrive, and so you have to create this formula how to stop this 95% of bureaucracy. Somehow to do that. For the next 3 years, all these bureaucrats, we tell them you can get salary again, but just don't do anything. Just don't do anything. Get your salary, and I'm confident it's going to be a lot better, and the country will be more healthier. But realistically, I think another problem is proper initiatives. When we talk about reforms, often it's these reforms are, it's like a small add-on to something, not some fundamental change of something, but an add-on. Let's change a little something here, and that will change something. Nothing will change it as a result. But you can't build a Mercedes out of a trashy car, even if you attach some fancy mirror. It's still a shabby little car. Same with reforms. If we offer to change something big and proceed by changing something small, you can make it only worse. It doesn't save you. It doesn't solve the problem. So you gotta change large scale, and the initiative from top to bottom should be even more radical, even more innovative. So the initiative is where we don't need some department or ministry to do something, where we just want Freedom, give us freedom to develop. We don't need your daily participation in our life. So in that case, the country will work. Otherwise, only you will see 1% growth, and only in 100 years something will happen. Ilya, from your experience with public structures, are people there capable of change? Look, from my experience working with governmental institutions, even if there are people there who want to change something for better, the system itself that is created doesn't allow them to do nothing. And we had some people who work with those institutions. They see it the way this is the way. First, there were a lot of reform-driven people who wanted to change something for better. When they entered that system, they were horrified by how bad everything is. So imagine the worst thing multiplied by 10. That's how bad everything was. And as a result, they tried to start changing this. But when they saw that the system stalls that effort, so my friend, who was a very interesting person, who worked in National Bank but unfortunately left, he said that it's like a mushroom. You cut it here, it grows there. And we do have a government of some sort. We have the system, but the system is only aimed at mafia servicing itself. Uh, the opportunities for mafia are the most developed here in terms of how can you build a system defrauding all the country and the whole world. But then when the reform-driven people realized where they are, uh, we had some waves, we had reforming ministers, we had some Georgian friends, then we had expatriates and so on. It's impossible. You invite Biden or Obama tomorrow. If it's not top 5 people, nothing would change. So as a result, anyone who's capable of battling this system, he finds a loophole or leaves. The way it happened with many people who wanted reform. Unfortunately, that's the story. And plus, after that, the werewolves started entering the power corridors. They look like reform-driven people. They share the same slogans, but at the same time, they what they wanted is being a parasite, taking and sucking blood and life juices out of the country. And what happened in 6 months? The old people started returning to the government. They are tiptoeing around, but still they are returning. So basically, they returned a lot of positions to themselves. And those who could from the reform-driven people, they still remain, but they're catastrophically low in numbers. Those who manage to protect themselves in public space, because for us, public space is the only last resort. I once said that the main oligarch in the country is not the oligarch, but Zuckerberg in Facebook, because if he will close Facebook for 2 weeks for Ukraine, all the governmental connections will collapse, and the government will collapse, because the most important for many modern politicians is self-PR and Facebook, and our expatriates in California, they laugh at it because they say nobody in the world uses Facebook for political platform. Nobody but Ukraine. And there's no such populism as in Ukrainian Facebook. So the picture I paint is rather sad. and we don't have reforms. We might think that they are, but our thinking doesn't make them happen, doesn't create food on the table. So in this sense, I understand that it's inevitable to have an outflow of people who want to create their projects, and they understand the logic pretty fast, and they understand that they don't have protection of intellectual property, they don't have investment, they don't have state support, and no matter how strongly our wish is to retain them here, they will go where markets are available, and we cannot hold them still here. We need to do things that others come to us because the paradigm of a modern state is aimed at that. Ukraine cannot and will not and never was mononational country. There have always been many nationalities here, and Ukraine, unlike our northern neighbor, has always been properly balancing between these nationalities, and everybody became Ukrainians. Even now, those who are residents of Ukraine, no matter what ethnicity, they're Ukrainians. Even tell you more. Even those who live in the West, out of Ukraine, I think they're Ukrainians as well. And you said about Ireland.
In Ireland, at present, there are 5 million people, more or less. When Irish people are asked how many Irishmen live in Ireland, they say 50 million because they do not separate themselves from diaspora who lives all over the world in the United States and other countries. It sounds strange. Yeah, they don't separate themselves from the diaspora because the borders don't matter. And in 10, 15 years from now, the picture is going to be changed. But maybe here, the picture is not going to be changed. But due to objective and subjective reasons, we are developing much slower in comparison with what goes on in the West at present. But I would like to summarize. Don't make yourself cheat from the point of view of the reforms which are not being implemented. I lived in the West for a long time. I know well what the government is capable of doing if they would like to reform and how quickly the reforms could be implemented. Within 1 week, within a month, life changes absolutely within the framework of the country, city, the street. And it takes place quickly. But the talks about that we are reforming, but we will see the results in 20 years from now, it's a lie. So this is what I wanted to share with you, and sorry for being so pessimistic. I'm sitting next to Vashadze, so I am tapping on his optimism. One more thing we would like to discuss before we start with the audience. I would like to talk on the education. The system of education in Ukraine, in spite of some cosmetic changes, it's the old Soviet system, which has been created to fill the other jobs, different economy, and the changes in this area take place very slowly. What do you think should be changed in education to prepare it for the new economy? I think this is the question of who do we need at all? What sort of workforce? Our former model and current model is reduced to the following. There is a plan for training specialists, and we need that many economists and people of technical trades and things like that. I think we have left the planned economy behind, but we still have the plans in the system of education. The number of services which give an opportunity to get a distance education is increasing in Ukraine. It's Ravitos and Coursera, which has adapted courses for Ukraine. But this is the question about a different thing. What happens with the people, to the people who in Ukraine all of a sudden decided to become students? These are old labs, old equipment, and we are talking now about getting education in Ukraine in fundamental sciences is impossible at present. You can use the Soviet textbooks, but it's bullshit. We won't be able to become competitive even to Poland because the genetics are being trained using the contemporary equipment and they use computer technologies and here in this country they still use chemicals. What are we talking about, the database and big data of DNA and the scientists from California made a conclusion that Tyrannosaurus rex are the ancestors of a chicken. In Ukraine, it won't be possible to prove. And the equipment is obsolete. And all these talks about reanimation of the Ukrainian scientists and a class of people which needs to be reanimated is unrealistic. And as long as the private investor would come and would invest into capital things, equipment, nothing is going to happen. We can just teach lots of physicists and mathematicians, but if they are using the old equipment, it's just useless. So the points of growth is what people can do at home, no matter where do you work if you are an IT specialist. But even in this sector, there are certain limitations. The IT people are learned how they go to the courses and then go 3 months, then they go to the company and they are trying to find out how to create a software. Well, because the Ukrainian universities do not train that many specialists of software which are needed in the market. A lot of those people do not have own ideas. They do not generate the product, and we continue to be commodity economy, which are providing services not for the Ukrainian companies because there is no internal domestic market to provide jobs for that many people. So people are working for the Western companies, and they are resolving small tasks which are being collected in some other countries. And the R&D centers are very few here. There are theories of conspiracy, and they say that Windows and Microsoft is being written in Ukraine, and these are non-official contracts, and people are working on these projects unofficially. But this is just a theory of conspiracy, and that's not more than that. And until we are going to develop the products, people will not understand and would not be able to decide where to go to study because they don't understand what's the export market and what's the internal domestic market. And people are oriented to quick wins, and that's not correct. And I think that there is no proper fundamental entrepreneurship in Ukraine. Unfortunately, does not exist in Ukraine because as far as the big privatized companies, they all work in accordance with the old schemes, even if their management has Harvard education. All the rest is small and medium-sized business, and they don't play a serious role in the economy. That's why, giving an answer to the question how the educational system should look like, well, it's difficult for me to say. And I think that we need some practical experience which Ukraine can use, sending people for internships. And thanks to the agents of change, it would be possible to create economic success stories of success, successful stories, and then to bring the young professionals not into business, but to send them to study so that they will be able to work for us. I will try to be brief. First of all, why do we need the system of education? To train the human resources for the future. The current system of education, which exists in Ukraine, is training human resources for the past, for the 20th century. And they are learning what could be used in the 20th century. In the 21st century, in the economy of knowledge, all this knowledge is useless. Everything depends, first of all, on us. Well, we have to understand, first of all, that to graduate, to get a master's degree doesn't mean that you have completed your education. If you Google the professions of the future and various articles which are being written, well, you will see that we have to develop our skills, the creativeness and teamwork and other things. On the other hand, we have a multi-layer system of education which is not teaching to be creative, but the other way around. They kill the creativeness. They say you have to learn the texts by heart, and if you don't do that, then you are not going to pass the test. But if you are trying to be creative then and discuss a certain issue, so the professor might disagree and said, I taught you a different thing, and you will have to tell what we told you and the way we taught you. So the current system of education realistically is directed against what we need in the future, because each individual who is born is different from from animals, because we have creativeness, innovative approaches. We like to invent some things, and that's why we are developing. But unfortunately, in any society, even developed society, only 6 to 7% of the population are inclined to innovations and creativeness. The rest are doing the same thing day and night. In the morning, they wake up, go to work, and in the evening, they are going to bed and they work in the plants. But the economy globally is developing so that we won't need these positions. We say that the plants are not going to employ that many people, and well, it will be impossible to work like cattle. So the standard system of education is not going to work. Is it good or bad? And this is very good. Why? Because when we are creative, when we are creating something, and in this case, we attain happiness. And what is happiness? When we are realizing ourselves, become creative. So the future tells us, be creative, and you will have higher revenues. You are going to have more work, more money, and you will feel better. And the current system of education trains us to be standard, and it generates robots. And the current system of education teaches us the same things, and it makes us think in terms of stereotypes. And it has been banned in our heads because the system of education trains us that way. What the state should do, first of all, they have to invest more into education. Secondly, competition has to increase in the educational system, so that there would be fewer state-owned schools, universities, vocational schools, and there should be more private schools, private universities, and private vocational schools, because they will compete between each other. But the only thing which the state could do in this respect, let them finance per capita. Let the state provide financing to the school, and they will tell you will have that much dollars per year, so that you would send your child to school or to the university, and I will choose the private schools, the private universities, and in this case, this competitive environment will be created, and it will create a competitive system of education. Why American system of education is considered to be the best? Because they do not have state universities which teach somebody free of charge, and these graduates become nothing, and they don't get the knowledge there. And in Harvard, I had a tutor, Christensen. He is considered to be the guru in business thinking. And he says that the future of education is not going to have a master's degrees. Maybe there will be no bachelor's degrees for 4 years, because 4 years is too long time to get a profession, and and MBA for 2 years. It's too much. It's too long, because within 2 years a lot of things are being changed around us. So the target will be to developing skills for 2 months, 2 weeks, and so on and so forth. And certain knowledge will be obtained, and thus they will become competitive. Unfortunately, we lag behind the schedule, and let us ask questions informally. So you said everything I wanted to say. So look, most important thing, I understand that now there are lots of students. Please don't quit studying in the universities on Monday. Continue studying, because things you are learning is to know how to study, learn how to learn. And this is a very important aspect. We have lots of people with higher education. We are one of the leaders in the world. That's why the IT sector is developed, not because the level of our education is high, but because actually we have a lot of people with higher education per capita population. So then statistically, there will be quite a number of intelligent people. These are people who know how to learn. They understood that learning by heart is not instrumental, but they can absorb information from the books, they read the Facebook, and our deputies cannot learn. And you can understand what's the difference. There are two systems, and that's very important. The Soviet system of education at school is directed at to nurture leaders who are unique and just a mass of people. And it in this there are a lot of knowledge which is absolutely irrelevant. What Kautsky was writing to Yertsin from exile, well, is not useful. 90% of what they teach you is the information which has no sense. American system is directed at teamwork. And that's why there are a lot of companies. They understand what is a sufficient partnership, because they teach people how to work in teams since childhood. And they don't know lots of things. They don't know where Cambodia is located or Donbass is located, but they know what is profit and loss. And this is very important for business. They know what is the P&L. And these are two fundamental differences between the two educational systems. But what we have now, and they envy us because we have a huge number of potentially intelligent people, and the potential of those people has been unleashed at the well, within the system which existed here for a long time. And I hope that the future Muskes are sitting here, Kalaniks who are launching Uber and other entrepreneurs, cool entrepreneurs who are creating multi-billion companies. But please, 20 years from now, if it works out, thanks to our intervention, and you earn a lot of money, plus, well, buy us a beer. Buy us a beer. Thank you for a very sincere panel. We are going to start the next panel in a moment.